Well, welcome to the channel, everybody. In this video we're going to be looking at Callaway's Apex Pro Series irons. Now Callaway have kindly sent me through the Pro, the CB and the MB to put to the test. I've also got the UT, the utility iron, to complement the sets. Now I'm out here at Hendriksen, I'm going to hit some balls, I'm going to give you some numbers of how these clubs are performing and tell you what Callaway is saying about these clubs. Now starting off with the Pro, now this is what Callaway are probably producing for more of the masses. This is a club that's going to give us ultra forgiveness compared to the other two models that we've got here to test today. Now this one here is a hollow body construction. It's got that forged face for that kind of ultra soft premium kind of feel. You've also got the urethane microspheres in the head of this club. Now the idea of this is to kind of give us a more dampener feel sound off the club face, also allowing that club face to be able to flex a little bit, ultimately giving us the ball speed off the club face. Oof, just jumping out of the rain because it's tipping down. Now a couple of other things I want to mention about the Callaway Pro is the sole design. We've got a new dynamic sole design which ultimately tells us that they've taken away a little bit of the leading edge, a little bit of the back edge, and the idea of this is to allow us to get into the turf and out of the turf in the most efficient way possible. If you dig that club into the ground too much, you might lose a little bit of speed. But what Callaway are saying that they've done is just improve their sole to allow us to gain as much ball speed as possible to combine with everything else in the tech. Now when Callaway talk about that flexing effect, I have sensed that, and probably some of you have sensed that in other manufacturers, other irons, other Callaway irons in the past, and I'm not getting a sense of it in the 7 iron that I'm testing out on the golf course today. I will test it a little bit more as we get up towards the green, maybe a couple of chip shots around the green, but when you get that little bit of flexing, sometimes you can feel like you can lose control. Obviously it's something you can get used to within a set, but for me personally, I want to feel more of a solid feel around the greens, more of a thud off the face rather than almost an explosion off the face. Now, Callaway are trying to work on this in the fact that they've changed this set in a way, they've made it more progressive. So in the longer clubs, they've got more of a cup face kind of design, which allows that ball to get out there with maximum ball speed, whereas on the shorter irons, they've gone for more of a plate design, which again, the idea of that is to give us more control when we're going into the greens. And then we move on to the CB iron, probably my favourite looking out of the three models, even though they do look pretty similar. But Callaway saying that we've got a 5-step forging process with the carbon steel in this head, and the idea of that is to give us that buttery, soft feel. Now we're moving into progressive CG. Callaway is saying that we've got progressive CG not only in the CB but also in the MB, and the idea of this progressive CG is to push the CG up and down the club face. Now for those longer clubs, which we want that ball flight to get up in the air quickly, come into the green with a bit more stopping power, they're going to push the CG a little bit lower in the face. And with those shorter clubs, when we want maybe just a fraction flatter in that flight, again, ultimately to get that control that we're looking for, we're going to start to see that CG go a little bit higher in the club face. Ultimately, we're trying to get control coming into those greens. We've got dynamic sole design in the CB head as well. Callaway saying that they've given us kind of more of a worn effect in the leading edge. The idea again is to allow that club to be a bit more efficient coming in and out of the turf when we're going into impact. Didn't sit much on that shot because I caught it a little bit clean. And the last thing that we want to mention when it comes to the CB head Callaway saying that we've got a thinner top line and a slightly longer blade length than, let's say, previous models. And the idea of this is to allow it to be able to blend a little bit easier with the other irons in that Apex range. And we'll come on to the comboing and blending after we look at the numbers. And then we move on to the MB, which, let's be honest, the muscle back bladed iron is the one that probably a lot of people look at as the most sexiest iron. However, probably going to be used by 5%, maybe not even 5% of the golfing world. And the idea of this iron is obviously over the years to get complete control over the ball, a small, compact kind of look to it, which we definitely have by the look of this MB that I'm looking at here now. But there is a little bit of tech that's gone into this. So let's hit a couple of shots and share that with you. So as you would expect when it comes to an MB, this body and face is forged as one piece, and Callaway saying that this is now giving us the purest feel imaginable. And am I getting the purest feel imaginable? Well, the strikes from the fairway and off the tee, I'm not actually sensing a great deal of difference between all three models, but when I get around the green, I would say that the Pro and the CB felt very similar. And then we move into the MB, and that just felt just a little bit more buttery, a little bit softer off the club face. So is it the purest feel imaginable? Well, it's pretty soft. Okay, starting off with the Pro 7 iron. Remember, 33 degrees of loft that I've got in this particular Pro iron. Got 115.7 mile an hour off the club face, launching at 18.9 with a spin rate of 5,781 on an average, peaking out 32 yards at an average carry of 162. If we then go into the CB, which now we move into a 34 degree lofted 7 iron, we've got 115 mile an hour off the club face, launching it at 20 degrees in height, spin rate picking up to 6,233 revs on an average, peaking out 33 yards high and an average carry of 159. Then we look at the MB, again 34 degrees in its loft. We've got 114.8 mile an hour off the club face, launching it at 20.9, so again just picking up that 1 degree from each club. Spin rate at 6,566 revs on an average, peaking out 35 yards high and an average carry of 158. Well, almost exactly what I would expect to see from these irons. If you think about the Pro iron, who is that designed for? Well, it's designed for people that maybe want a little bit more out of their irons, that slightly lower loft, but not too extremely low in the loft, 33 degrees. It's designed for people that maybe want to launch the ball up in the air. They want to get a good amount of control from the spin, but it is a little bit lower in the spin. But ultimately, for off-centered strikes, that hollow body construction, I think is going to work really well for a lot of people out there for those miss hits. Then the CB, it's kind of like the sandwich club, isn't it? Now, when I look down at the CB, it looks very, very similar to the Pro. It does change up a little bit, in my opinion, when it comes into the MB. But the CB, I think, again, just offering that little bit more spin out of that club, maybe dropping a slightly little bit shorter because of the spin and the extra little bit of loft that you're getting, only 1 degree from the 7 irons. But that CB, I think, blends really nicely when it comes into that Pro iron as well. And then finally the MB. Now the MB to me just looks a little bit squatter when I look down at it. Blade length from top to bottom just a little bit thinner, which ultimately makes it feel to me, and it's not, makes it feel maybe a little bit longer in its club length as well, from heel to toe. I think from a looks point of view, I think I prefer the progressive look of the CB and the Pro, but that MB I think is gonna tick the boxes for lots of good players out there that want that, maybe that little bit more control, a little bit more spin, launching it actually interestingly a little bit higher, which is not kind of what I would expect from that iron, but a good amount of spin control. I think the combination of the CB and the Pro works really, really well. And if we look at the 3 shots that I've hit here, I've got my MB, my CB in the middle, and my Pro on the left-hand side there. Just shows that the numbers that we're getting in the studio are actually being seen kind of out on the golf course as well. Not a great deal of difference from what I could see from a ball flight point of view, from launching off the club face, and then whether it's peaking out a little bit higher, not seeing a great deal of difference there. But certainly when you get up here and you see that they're all gathered in the same sort of distance area, that's got to be a win when you're looking at comboing any kind of series of irons. And then the UT. Now this one I've kind of almost fallen in love with. The more I've hit it as I've gone round, the more I'm able to experiment with it and create different types of shots, whether I want to hit it higher. Now Callaway's saying that they've created a more shallower kind of look to this iron compared to, let's say, previous models, and the idea of that is to help possibly just push that CG a little bit lower and get that ball to launch just a little bit higher. Well, I'm not struggling to get it in the air, but I'm also not struggling to keep it down. What I really like about it is the fact that all these clubs have got very minimal offset. When you move into the kind of utility iron, sometimes you can see it a little bit bulbous and a bit offset. But this one is not, and it's going to really suit the eye for so many players out there that don't want to see too much offset. Those tend to find good players will overdraw kind of hybrids. They'll overdraw kind of long irons if they go a little bit too offset. So seeing that with a little less offset is a good thing as far as I'm concerned. We've got cup face inside this head, ultimately to give it the maximum ball speed possible, because ultimately this is just a power bat for off the tee. And then also they're going to look at that sole as well, because they want to make it more efficient, just like the other clubs that we're seeing in this series. We got a little bit taken off on that leading edge, a little bit taken off on that trailing edge, allowing that club to work through the turf nicely and maintain good ball speed basically. And what I like about it as well is you've got that solid punch off the face, very similar to what we're getting in the irons. Again, when you look at a club like this that kind of looks like it's got that hollow body construction, you kind of feel that you might get a little bit of flexing off the face and a little bit of like a popping kind of sound, but you're not getting that at all, which again, Callaway have thought about, and they're allowing you to think about blending this whole kind of series together, allowing you to put this club in right at the top if you want something that's got that oomph off the tee and can launch it just that little bit higher. Well, there you have it. There is my review of the Apex Pro Series irons by Callaway. I think the way in which Callaway have approached this series has been fantastic. Allowing us to be able to blend and combo sets is going to work so well for so many golfers out there. Remember, you are going to change your clubs probably every 5 to 6 years, and the technology that we're seeing into these irons compared to maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we're seeing some improvements there. But I'd like to hear down in the comments, what did you think of that review? Are you going to go out and test the Apex Pro Series irons? Don't forget, if you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again very soon.